Hi everyone, welcome to Majesty's House of Music. Today I'm going to address the needs of beginning piano players. It's very important for you to learn piano the right way, developing your piano playing using the right concepts. Okay, now you need to have a guided process. Now there is a course I call the Foundational Piano course, which is very good for beginners. It runs for 5 hours, 5 hours long of solidifying your knowledge in piano theory and understanding the concepts in piano playing, like the use of major chords, the use of major seventh chords, the use of minor seventh chords, chord inversions, slash chords, passing chords, modulation, understanding chord progressions like the 2-5-1, 7-3-6 chord progressions. You need to understand these foundational concepts in piano playing. Now, in this course, I take time to go from the very basics. I teach you about the major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. I teach you how chords are built up, how major chords are built up, and how you get all those other types of chords from the major chords, okay? If you don't know what the number system is, these are foundational concepts that you need to understand in your piano playing. And that's the purpose of the Foundational Piano course. If you are interested in this course, check the link below this description to my website. Also check the email and the WhatsApp contact if you have a challenge ordering the course from our website. Now I'm going to post some extracts of this course so that you can have a preview. Okay, you can have a preview, a test of what you expect if you decide to order this full course. Now, this course is not for everybody. It's just for those who are willing to go an extra mile and invest in their piano playing and get resources that will help them grow. Okay, so let's have a look at the Foundational Piano course. So hi guys, in this chapter, as I mentioned, I'll be talking about the basics, the beginning point, and that is understanding the major scale. Now, like learning a new language, for example, when you're learning a new language, you have to learn letters from A to Z, for example, in English. So the same thing in music. We have to learn the alphabet of music. And the alphabet of music runs from letter A to letter G. And the beginning point is understanding the major scale. The major scale is what is commonly known as do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So that is the major scale. For example, if I play a C major scale, then backwards. So that is what we call a major scale. And for you to understand music, whether it's on a piano, on a guitar, any instrument that uses notes, of course, apart from drums and those percussive instruments, you have to learn the major scale. So do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So I'm going to spend a little time trying to get deeper into it and understanding where does the major scale come from. So a piano has the white notes and the black notes. You see many notes on the piano, but in essence, there are only 12 notes on a piano. There are 7 white notes and 5 black notes. So for you to understand this well, look at the structure of the piano. You see 2 black notes, 3 black notes, 2 black notes, 3 black notes, 2 black notes, 3 black notes throughout the piano. So if you want to get the total number of notes, you just count from one note. For example, from this black note to the same note, the following note, the same note, the similar note following it. So if I count from this group of 2 black notes to the next group of 2 black notes, so I'll count from this black note to this black note, you can hear that they sound the same, although with different pitches. So this black note is the same as this black note, the same as this black note, the same as this black note. So if I count from this black note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, back to 1. You find that there are 12 notes. If I count, for example, from this white note, the white note before the 2 black notes, to the next white note before the 2 black notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there are 12 notes on a piano. Now the white notes are 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The black notes are 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let's look at the names of the white notes. So the white note just before the first 2 black notes is what we call a C. So we have a C, and then according to the alphabets, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, back to C. So without repeating the C on top, how many white notes do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? Now let's look at the black notes. The black notes are what we call the sharps or flats. Now, each of the black notes will have 2 names. So it will either have a sharp or a flat. 2 names for each of the black notes. So let's take an example of this black note. This black note lies in between 2 white notes. It lies in between the C and the D. So this black note is what we call a C sharp or a D flat. So we call it a D flat because it is below the D. And we call it a C sharp because it is above the C. So this note has 2 names, C sharp or D flat. Same thing to this note, it will have 2 names, that is a D sharp or an E flat. So this note is D sharp or E flat. Then this note will be F sharp or G flat because it's lying in between F and G. So it will be F sharp or G flat. Then this note will be a G sharp or A flat. G sharp because it's lying right ahead of G, and A flat because it's lying below A. So this is G sharp or A flat. Hi guys, welcome once again to another class. I believe that so far you're enjoying the lessons. And remember, these are beginner lessons, maybe a little bit to the intermediate level, but basically for the beginners. So I hope so far you've gone through the other lessons. And in this section, I'm going to be talking about passing chords. And on my YouTube channel, Majesty's House of Music, if you haven't subscribed there yet, go out to Majesty's House of Music on YouTube. Many people have been asking me to talk about passing chords. And I'm going to break it down in a very simple way for us to understand exactly what are passing chords and where can we use passing chords and what is the main concept behind passing chords. Okay, so I'm in the key of C and you're going back to our song Amazing Grace. Oh, no, sorry, What a Friend We Have in Jesus, rather. And I'm going to show you various instances, various places where we can apply passing chords. Now, a passing chord is simply a chord that helps me to move from one chord to another. So it's like a bridge. It acts like a bridge connecting me from this chord to the next chord. So for example, if I want to move from C major, what a friend we have in Jesus. So I'm doing a movement from chord number 1, that is C major, all the way to chord number 4, which is F major. If you don't understand those numbers, please check out the lesson on scale degrees, and that will help you to understand the number system. So when I'm moving from 1 to 4, I can use a number of transitions, okay? So think of a passing chord like a transition, something that helps me connect from my 1, which is my C major, to my 4, which is my F major. So I can start thinking about the distance from C to F and what are the chords available that I can use to move from C to F. So I can start simply by using the 2, the 3, then taking me to the 4. So for example, using the 2 is a D minor, and 3 is an E minor, okay? From the scale degrees lesson, we covered that. So when I'm moving from C major to F major, I can pass through D and E, so long as I keep the time. So I'll do it simply like this. What a friend we have in Jesus. So you see, instead of just moving from C straight to F, I'm using the D minor and the E minor as passing chords. So basically that's the concept about a passing chord. So, what a friend we have in Jesus. So that's a very simple way of doing it. Another way of doing the same principle of passing through the 2 and the 3 to the 4 is using inversions, for example. So instead of playing the D minor like this, I can use this inversion of D minor. Instead of playing the E minor in the root position, I can also use this inversion of E minor. So I can start from C major, G, C, and E. What a friend we have in Jesus. I can use the inversions as passing chords, okay? So the passing chords just help to reduce the waiting time when you're moving from one chord to another. So within that waiting time, you can play something, okay? Now let's take it a little bit further. Okay, now, there are many ways to transition, and there are many different types of chords that we can use, but we'll just try to simplify it. Now let's just tackle the movement from 1 to 4 and look at the options that we can use. So we have talked about the option of passing through the 2, the 3, then to the 4. Now another option can be using a slash chord. For example, when I'm moving from 1 to 4, C to F, I can use a 5/3 as a passing chord to the 4, to the F. So I'll do this. What a friend we have in Jesus. So that 5/3 is a passing chord in a way. It's a slash chord. G, I'm using that inversion of G, B, D, and G, of an E on the left. So, what a friend we have in Jesus. So the C, G over E, then to the F. Now let's go back to that position again, that G over E, and look at what other options do we have on the right hand. Instead of using the G, we can also use other chords. So we are thinking of the 3, position 3. We are moving from 1 to 4, but we are passing through 3. Now, in this 3 position, instead of using the G major, we can also use an E major, for example, depending on the song, but it will give us a different sound. So let's listen to this, how it will sound when you use the E major as a passing chord. What a friend we have in Jesus. Hear that sound? What a friend we have in Jesus. Okay, it really sounds major, but we can use different variations of this E and get different sounds out of it. So for example, in this case, I've just used the major chord to pass through to the 4. Now, I can also use C augmented chord. Now, what's an augmented chord? An augmented chord is simply a major chord that has a sharp 5. So, for example, a C major chord is C, E, G. A C augmented chord will be sharpen the G, make it a G sharp. So that is a C augmented chord, C, E, and G sharp. So the formula behind it is 1, 3, and sharp 5. Okay? So if you check my notes, Music at C Level, the ebook, you'll find diagrams of all the augmented chords down there. Okay? So hi guys, welcome again to another lesson, and today I'm going to be talking about modulation. Okay? Modulation simply means changing from one key to another. Now, as a beginner, this is a technique which you need to start developing, because you find that a song will sometimes move from one key to another with certain dynamics. So what it means is that we don't just want to use the transpose button, or you see, just move to the next key abruptly. So we want to look at some techniques to move smoothly from one key to another. So I'm going to start with the first technique using the song, our song, What a Friend We Have in Jesus. I believe that's a song which all of us around the world can relate to. So what a friend we have in Jesus. It doesn't matter what language you sing it in your country, but the flow is the same, and we can learn these principles using that song. So I'm going to play What a Friend We Have in Jesus. I'll start in the key of C, and what I want just to mention is that you need to learn how to play in all the keys. So start from the first lesson, avoid the transpose button. Okay, so learn how to play in all the keys, understand the scale degrees in every key, because you'll not be able to do modulation well if you cannot play in every key. So first you need to know the chords in every key. So I'm going to start the song in the key of C, and then I will transpose it to the key of D. Okay, so I'll start from C. You know our C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay, and our D major scale is D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. So I'm starting it in the key of C. So I'll just play it through one so that you can see how I'm modulating. And the first technique I'm going to use for modulating is moving to the 5 of the next key on my right hand and the 4 of the next key on my left hand. What do I mean by these numbers? So if you have looked at the lessons on scale degrees, you understand what the numbers are. So in the key of C, okay, in the key of C, C major is chord number 1, D minor is chord number 2, E minor is chord number 3, F major is chord number 4, G major is 5, A minor is 6, B diminished is 7, C major is 8, okay, or 1. Now in the key of D, where we want to move to, D major is chord number 1, E minor is chord number 2, F sharp minor is chord number 3, G major is chord number 4, A major is chord number 5, B minor is chord number 6, and C sharp diminished is chord number 7, back to number 8 or 1, which is D major. Okay, so now I want to move from C to D, and the technique I'm going to use is to play the 5 of the next chord on my left and the 4 of the next chord on my right. I think I said it the opposite the first time. So it is the 5 of the next chord on my left and the 4 of the next chord on my right hand. So when I'm moving from C to D, the 5 of D is A, so I'll play A on my left hand, and the 4 of D is G major. So I'm playing a 4 over 5 of D. So I'll play that 4 over 5, then to the D. Okay? So let's go back to the key of C, and then we see how we move to the key of D. Okay? So, what a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. So I'm just using simple triads, simple chords. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins. So up to that point, did you see how I changed? So, going to the last part of the song in the key of C, everything to God in prayer, and then 4/5 G over A. What? So you see that? So I go to G over A, that is the 4/5, and then I can also play a 5, 4/5, then to the 5, which is A major, G over A, then to A major, and then now to D, which is now my new key, my 1. Okay? So let me do that again. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. What a friend. Okay? See that? Now let's try move from D to E. So we ask ourselves, what is the 5 of E? The 5 of E, if you look at E major scale, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, and E. So the 5 of E is B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what did we say we do? We play that 5 on our left hand. And what do we play on the right? 4. So what is chord number 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. A major. So remember 4 is always major, so that is A major. So we play A major over B, 4/5. So that is the chord that we'll use to move. 4/5, and then the 5, which is B major, and then the 1, which is E major. Okay? So let's move from D to E. What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything. Hi everybody, welcome once again to another lesson in our series. And in these lessons, I'm trying to go through the basics, the things that you really need, the most critical things that you need to advance as a beginning piano player, or maybe you've been playing for some time. And today I want to cover a very crucial point, or two crucial points. The first point is about chord inversions, and the second point is about slash chords. Okay, so I encourage you to go through the other lessons if you haven't done so that at this stage you are up to date. You should be comfortable with your major scales. You should be comfortable with your triads, the major chords, minor chords, the diminished chords, the suspended chords. You should also be comfortable with your scale degrees. So if you haven't gone through the other lessons, please go through that so that you can be able to tackle this. So in this lesson, I'm going to talk about chord inversions. Now, a chord inversion is simply an alternative way of playing a specific chord. So an alternative arrangement of the same chord, a different way of playing the same chord. So for example, let's look at a C major chord. A C major chord has the notes C, E, and G. Okay. C, E, and G for a C major chord. Now, if I want to play this C major chord using an inversion, that means I will change the arrangement of the three notes, the C, the E, and the G. I simply change the arrangement, but I maintain the same notes. So what I'll do is this. There are two inversions, or two different ways I can play this chord. Now the first inversion, I will move this C note to the end and I'll maintain the E and the G. So remember, the C is the root, then we have E is the third and G is the fifth. So for the first inversion, I'll first play the third, the fifth, and then I will take that root, that C, to the end. So instead of having C, E, and G, I will now have E, G, and C. So that will be my first inversion of the C major chord. Now what about the second inversion? For the second inversion, I'll now take the E, which is the third, to the end. So instead of having E, G, and C, I now have G, C, and E. Okay? So let me go through that again. The root position of a chord begins with the root of the chord. For example, for a C major chord, the root of the chord is the C. So the root position is C, E, and G for a C major chord. That is 1, 3, and 5. Now the first inversion will be 3, 5, and 1. I bring the 1 to the end. So 3, 5, 1. E, G, C. The second inversion will be 5, 1, 3. So the 3, the E, I bring it to the end. So I now have G, C, and E. So we have C, E, G, E, G, C, and G, C, E. Okay? Let me explain using a different chord. This time I'll explain using a minor chord, for example, using a D sharp minor chord. Let's move up to the sharps a little bit. So the D sharp minor chord is D sharp, F sharp, and A sharp. Okay? That's the D sharp minor. The first inversion of this chord will be, see, simply take the D sharp to the front. So we'll have F sharp, A sharp, and D sharp. And then the second inversion will be now A sharp, D sharp, and F sharp. Okay. Another example, using a diminished chord. For example, I will use a G diminished chord. G diminished. So a G diminished chord is G, A sharp, and C sharp. So the first inversion of this chord will be A sharp, C sharp, and G. Okay? Then the second inversion will be C sharp, G, and A sharp. So you should be very comfortable seeing those inversions, okay? Very fast. Like that, like that, like that. So this is an exercise that you can just do. You pick a chord and then you just run through the three positions: the root position, the first inversion, the second inversion. First inversion, root position. So for example, on the C major, I'll do this. C major in the root, first inversion, second inversion, first inversion, back to the root. And then an exercise I usually teach my student is run through the inversions in all the 12 keys. So there's an exercise I give my students that helps them to master the major chords, the minor chords, the diminished chords, the suspended chords in all the three positions, in all the three inversions. So what you do is this. Okay, for example, you start with key C. I'll start with a C major chord, right? C major in the root, C major first inversion, C major second inversion, C major first inversion, back to the root. And then I move to a C minor chord, okay? Now that's C major, C minor, that flat 3, the E flat. So you have C, E flat, or D sharp and G. C minor in the root, first inversion, second inversion, first inversion, back to the root. And then I move to, for example, a C diminished. C diminished in the root, first inversion, second inversion, first inversion, back to the root. Then I can go to a C sus2 chord, C, D, and G. That is a C suspended 2 chord. In the root position, okay, then the first inversion, second inversion. So I do that exercise. And then I can move to another key. For example, now the next key is C sharp. I want to run through all the 12 keys, okay? I go to C sharp, okay, C sharp major, for example. That is the root position, the original. Hi everybody, welcome once again to another lesson. We have been doing a series of lessons, so I hope so far you have updated yourself from the major scales all the way to the triads, all the way to the scale degrees, all the way to the inversions and the slash chords. And so today I want us to expand a little bit specifically on the chords. So we talked about the triads, and we say that the triads are 3-note chords. For example, if I play a C major chord, I'm playing 3 notes. So that is what we call a triad. But now we have chords that have more than 3 notes. For example, a C major 7th chord has 4 notes, C, E, G, and B. Or a C minor 7th chord has 4 notes. So we have these chords that have more than 3 notes. You can have 4 notes, you can have 5 notes. So in this lesson, I'd like us to go a little bit deeper and look into these chords. We'll start on a very simple way. Remember, these courses are meant for the beginners, and so I'll try to keep it very simple, and I'll explain bit by bit so that we can be all on the same page. So today I'm going to talk about 3 types of extended chords. The first type are the major 7th chords. Then the second type are the minor 7th chords. And then the third type are the dominant 7th chords. Now these are the most important, okay? The foundational extended chords that you need to know, which you can apply in very many songs. So let's begin looking at the first type of extended chords. Those are the major 7th chords. So even as the name suggests, a major 7th chord is adding the 7th note of the scale of that chord to the major chord. So for example, if I want to play a C major 7th chord, the first thing to do is to play the C major chord itself, and then look for the 7th note from the C major scale. What is the 7th note on a C major scale? That is a B, okay? So B is the 7th note of a C major scale. So if I want a C major 7th chord, I will simply add the 7th note of the C major scale to the C major chord. So I have C, E, G for my C major chord, and then I add the B on top to get a C major 7th chord. Okay? Now, let me explain the same thing on a different chord. For example, F sharp or G flat. If I want an F sharp major 7th chord, what do? First, I look for the F sharp major chord, F sharp major, that is F sharp, A sharp, and C sharp. And then I'll ask myself, what is the 7th note of the F sharp major scale? So I play the major scale, F sharp, A sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, F, and F sharp. So the 7th note of the F sharp major scale is the F. So the F sharp major 7th will be the F sharp major, and then we add the F. So it's that simple. Just add the 7th note of the scale of the chord that you're playing to get the major 7th. So the formula in terms of numbers is 1, 3, 5 for the major chord, okay? And then you add the 7 for the major 7th. So it's 1, 3, 5, and 7, okay? Now, The next type of chord that we can look at is the minor 7th chord. Okay, and I believe at this point you are updated on the triads, so you cannot go through this lesson if you haven't covered the triads. Okay, so just to save on time, we will not go back again to what we already covered in that lesson. So for example, if we want to play a C minor 7th chord, what do? Now the only difference between the major 7th and the minor 7th is this. On the major 7th chord, we add the 7th note. For example, in the case of C major 7th, we added the B. But now on the minor 7th chord, instead of adding the 7th, we add the flat 7. Okay? And in the case of C major scale, the flat 7 is A sharp. Why? Because B is 7, flat 7 means the note below the 7. Okay? Sharp 7 will be 8. That is the 7, the B is the 7. Flat 7 is B flat or A sharp. Okay? So you understand the scale. This is 1, this is 2. This is sharp 1 or flat 2. So the same thing applies. This is 7, this is sharp 7 or 8. Back to the 7, this is flat 7 or sharp 6. Okay? The note between 6 and 7 is the flat 7 or the sharp 6. So that is the note. The flat 7 is the note that we add to the minor. So we have our C minor as C, D sharp, and G. Okay? Remember that the minor chord is found from the flat 3. E flat. When you flatten the third, you get a minor chord. So that's a C major. Then if you flatten the E to an E flat, you get a C minor. Now to get the C minor 7th, we add the flat 7, which is our B flat or our A sharp. So that gives us our C minor 7th. Another example in the key of, for example, D. I want a D minor 7th chord. So the first thing to do is to find the D minor chord. Okay, the D minor chord is D, F, and A. To get the D minor 7th, I add the flat 7 note on the D major scale. Okay, so D major scale, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So our last D is our 8, our 7 is C sharp. What is our flat 7? C. Okay, so I'll add the C to the D minor chord to get a D minor 7. So D minor, add the C on top, D minor 7. Okay. Hi guys, welcome again. Now this is our second lesson, and just to recap, in the first lesson, of which I encourage you to check back on if you haven't done so, I talked about formation of the major scale. We got into the details about the half steps, the whole steps, and how the major scale is formed. And we emphasized how important or how critical it is for us to understand the formation or the structure of a major scale. And we went through all the 12 major scales. But just to recap, to bring us up to date, because in this lesson, I'm going to talk about formation of some chords. And now you have to realize that when you're playing a song, we are playing blocks of notes. So these blocks of notes are what we call chords. And for you to understand how these chords are formed, you have to be familiar with your scales, and specifically the major scales. And so just to recap a little bit, we say that a major scale, I'll illustrate using a C major scale. A major scale has 12 notes, okay? So, 8 notes. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So that's a C major scale. And remember, we say that a major scale has 2 half steps between the 3rd and the 4th, and between the 7th and the 8th. The rest of the intervals are whole steps. And so now when we're looking at formation of chords, chords basically come from the major scale. That is the mother of all the chords. And so I'm going to talk about the two main categories of chords. The first main category of chords are what we call the triads, and the second category are what we call extended chords. And just to remind you that you can go back to our notes, talking in more detail or in greater detail about the differences between the extended chords and the triads. But basically, a triad is a 3-note chord. That means a chord that has 3 notes. What do I mean? When I play 3 notes, I'm playing a triad. And an extended chord is a chord that has more than 3 notes. So for example, if I play 4 notes or 5 notes, I'm playing an extended chord. That means the extra notes are an extension of the triad. Okay? So now let's first focus on the triads. In this lesson, we'll focus on the triads, and then we'll get further into the extended chords in other lessons. So the first type of triad I want us to look at today is the major chord. So taking you back to the C major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. To form the C major chord, what we do is we play the C, the E, and the G. Now, what is the theory behind the major chord? We play the root or the first note of the scale. In this case, it's C. Then we play the third, and in this case, it's an E, and we play the fifth. In this case, it's a G. So the notes of the scale are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so the major chord will have the notes 1, 3, and 5. So that's a C major chord. Let's look at the next major chord. So we'll go through all the 12 major chords. So the next chord after C is, of course, C sharp. So let's look at the C sharp major scale. First, C sharp, D sharp, F, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, C, and C sharp. Now, the first note is a C sharp, okay? The third note is F. The fifth note is G sharp. So the C sharp major chord will be C sharp, F, and G sharp, 1, 3, and 5. Next is the D major chord. So first of all, get the D major scale, which will give you the numbers from 1 to 8, and then we'll get 1, 3, and 5 to give us our D major chord. So D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. So what is number 1? D. Number 3? F sharp. Number 5? A. Right? So that's our D major chord, D, F sharp, and A. Next major chord is our D sharp major chord, also called the E flat major chord, because D sharp is also an E flat. So let's first look for the D sharp major scale, which will give us 1 to 8. Do, re, mi, fa, so. So what is our number 1? D sharp. Our number 3, G. Our number 5, A sharp. So our D sharp major chord will have those 3 notes, D sharp, G, and A sharp. Then what's our next chord? Is an E major chord. So to get the E major chord, first we get the E major scale. E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, and E. 1 is E, 3 is G sharp, 5 is B. So that's our E major chord. Then what's our next major chord? F. So first the F major scale. F, A, B. Okay, F, G, A sharp, C, D, E, F. So number 1 is F, number 3 is A, and number 5 on that scale is C. So we have our F major chord as F, A, and C. Next, F sharp major chord. F sharp, also known as G flat. Okay? So our F sharp major scale first, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, F, and F sharp. Remember the fingering from our first lesson? You can use also the fingering patterns in the guidebook. So our number 1 is F sharp, our number 3 is A sharp, and our number 5 is C sharp. That's our F sharp major chord. Next we have the G major chord. So we have the G major scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. And the G major chord will be 1 is G,